Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Chance, and it's Friday, so that means I'm going to be doing some hot takes. And today's hot takes are going to be on a roundup of Oink Games. Now, I'm in a bit of a rush because I'm crazy busy at work, which means I got about an hour and a half to film and edit this thing and get this posted to YouTube. So we're going to keep this kind of speedy and, staying with the small box games, small time video, something like that. So moving on, let's kick things off with the first Oink game that I ever played, and that is going to be Deep Sea Adventure. You may notice this one is still in my collection, although I don't think it's staying around in my collection. Let's talk about why. So Deep Sea Adventure is a little push your luck game with a roll and move mechanic. Basically, every player is going to have a little diver on this sub. The sub has a tracker on it that's going to be the amount of air that the players have access to. And then there's going to be a trail of tokens that players are going to dive down. Now, there's going to be 3 different tiers of tokens. There's like your stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And essentially on the backside of those tokens are going to be points. So your goal is to dive down, and generally the deeper you dive, the more points those tokens are going to be worth. So if you land on a token, you can choose to pick it up or leave it there and try to continue diving. The reason you might want to leave it there is because each token you pick up is going to slow down your diver. You're going to roll those 2 dice and then essentially take that total and subtract the amount of treasure that you have, and that will be how far you move. So each piece of treasure you move is going to slow your diver down. So a lot of the time, the way the game will work is people will try to dive as deep as they think they should, and then pick up their first token and then just try to rush back to the sub and maybe try to pick up some tokens on the way back. And usually that first person to turn around, that's what triggers everyone else to be a little bit afraid, because essentially every time it gets around to someone's turn, they are going to reduce the air token by the number of treasures they're currently holding. So you have a shared air supply of that 25 air, which means that essentially one person, when they get their first treasure, that starts ticking down every time it's their turn. Then if they go up and they pick up that second treasure, then they're going down 2 every time it's their turn. And usually this triggers a cascade of players picking up treasure, and then you're all of a sudden, if you have 4 players, people are just ticking down the air every turn. So every time it comes back around to you, it's like 4 air less, and you're like, oh, this is it's getting tight. And the dice, they're only numbered 1 to 3, so the maximum movement value you can do is a 6, which means that you're a little bit limited. So you got to be a little bit careful about your decision of kind of how deep do you dive, when do you turn around, when do you pick up treasure. Because essentially if you don't make it back to the sub by the time the air runs out, you get nothing for that round. You actually drop your treasure to the bottom of the sea. And if you make it back to the sub, you get to reveal your tokens and see how much points you got. So yeah, there's a lot of random in this game. You got the dice rolling, you got the random values of the treasure tokens. There's even a treasure token in there that's just a 0. Like you could pick it up and just get nothing for the round, which I actually think is hilarious. But it is it's a good time. I really enjoy Deep Sea Adventure. I think I've played it about let's say a dozen times now or so. It's just kind of one of these fillers that I like to pull out every now and again. I would say it's lost its luster for me. I think I had a lot more fun with it those first like 3 to 6 plays, where it was new and it was exciting, and it was also like introducing it to new people is always a bit more exciting than playing it with the same group over and over. I like when people find out after that first round how dangerous it is to stay down deep or to pick up too much treasure. Like seeing people realize that for the first time is the exciting part. Once you get a strategy going, that's where the game kind of gets a little boring, because you can't really execute your strategy. You're just like, I'm just going to dive. I'm going to roll twice and move down, pick up that first token, and return to the sub. So yeah, this is one that is definitely kind of lost its luster for me. Now, I will mention that some of the images I've shown so far are for the Deep Sea Adventure Boost version, which is not the version I have. I am kind of interested to try out the Boost version. But as far as the Deep Sea Adventure goes, there are other push your luck games, especially for my Reiner Knizia, that I would probably rather play instead. Like I really enjoy Don't Llama Dice, and then I've also talked about Paku Paku a lot. That's not Reiner Knizia, but it is kind of my preferred dice rolling filler game. Yeah, there's just other games that I kind of would rather play over Deep Sea Adventure at this point. But I do think it is a good time. So especially if you have kids or something, I've played this with younger kids before, and it's always fun. So there's Deep Sea Adventure. All right, let's move on to Oink's probably most well-known game. This one, won the Spiel des Jahres back in 2022. This is going to be Scout. Now, Scout is a hand management shedding card game, and the kind of interesting mechanic you have going on here is that you're going to be dealt a hand of cards, and you pick them up. You are not allowed to reorder them, but you get a one-time choice of, do you want to hold your hand the way you picked it up, or do you want to flip your entire hand over and hold it that way? Basically, every card has 2 numbers on it. The top number is like the current value of the card. The bottom number is what the opposite side of the card has. So you can kind of see, and you're trying to make runs and sets of numbers. So maybe flipping your hand over gives you more runs and sets to give you a better way to get rid of your cards, because it's a shedding card game. So you're going to be trying to shed all the cards from your hand to win the round, or just play the largest or play the largest show, because it's called a show. So essentially, on your turn, if there's no cards out, you can just play whatever card you want. You can play a set of cards. Essentially, that's going to be a set of the same numbers or a consecutive run of cards. And then the next player has to try to beat that show that you put on. And beating it is usually playing either more cards in their set or playing a higher value set. And that's the part, the rules, which sets are higher value. That's usually the part that's hardest to go over. Nothing super complicated in this game, but having players remember, like, is a run better than a set, and then you got to know, like, the higher numbered set is better. It's not like super challenging, but it is just that one thing that you gotta lock in for players before you start the game. And then if you can't do that, you can do what's called a scout action. That's the name of the game, right? Scout. So essentially, scouting is just taking one of the cards that's in the current face-up show on the table. Essentially, you take one card from one of the ends. You can take that card, you can orient it however you want, and then you can slide it anywhere into your hand, which is amazing because you could build up a nice set or a nice run by slotting the right card into your hand and making your next move more powerful. And then the player that has the active show that you scouted a card from, they're going to gain a point token. So they get a benefit for putting on a great show for that round. And then essentially the risk, though, is that if it goes all the way around the table and everyone had to do a scout action and it goes back to the player that has the active show, they win the round because no one could put on a better show than they did. So it has, and then of course you have the scout and show chip, which allows you one time during a round to do both a scout and show action. So you could scout a card and then show it on the same turn. This is a popular way to kind of finish the round, to go out on that turn, to be like, oh, I'm out. But sometimes you might want to do it a little earlier, just so you don't get as many negative points by the end of the round. You mimight be like, ooh, I could get rid of a lot of cards right here if I get this down. I don't have to take as big of a risk. So it's a really good card game. It's just a very, very solid card game. I do really enjoy playing it. I will say, though, that my group that I play with is not, we're not big into just playing card games for the night. So this doesn't really hit the table very often. And also, I'm not the biggest fan of shedding card games. I like trick takers a lot more. I feel like shedding card games, I am either just not very good at them, or they're just very luck dependent. Probably a little bit of both. There's the hand you're dealt is going to kind of determine how well you do. But I mean, there is some control you have on it, especially with those scout actions, because sometimes maybe you could beat the show, but you're like, ooh, if I do the scout right now, I can kind of set myself up for later. So it's not 100% luck based. Definitely a lot of decisions and a lot of control in the player's hands. But it's just not my favorite genre of game. But I pulled this one out recently, and every time I play it, I have a good time. So it is one of those card games where, yeah, I would recommend having this one. Okay, let's move on to my number 3 Oink game. This one is going to be Insider. Now, Insider, you may notice, isn't up here. Insider I have owned in the past, and I'm kind of sad I don't own it anymore. I gave it away because it wasn't hitting the table ever for me. I'd never really had the right group to play with all the time. I mean, it's like you can play with, I don't know, I want to say 3 to 8 people or something. Yeah, probably like 4 to 8 or something. And it plays better at those higher player counts, probably around like 5 to 8 is probably where you're going to want to play this game. And there was never always the situation to pull this game out. So I actually gave it to someone where he's a teacher and the kids in the classroom play games, and sometimes they need those higher player counts and they like things like where words. So donated it to him to see if they wanted to use it in the classroom. But Insider is this game where one person is going to be the kind of, let's say, the leader of the round, and then you're going to have everyone else is going to be a follower. You're going to deal out these little cardboard tokens telling people who they are, and one person's going to get that Insider token. And this is it's kind of a social deduction game, a very light social deduction game. So essentially, that leader person is going to flip over a card. They're going to get usually I think a noun. So they're going to get a word. And then the insider is going to secretly open their eyes, and they're also going to see the word that the leader has gotten. And I think they're called the master or something for the round. And then everyone's going to close their eyes, and everyone opens their eyes. And then you essentially play a round of 20 questions. So the master is going to be answering the questions because they know what the thing is, and all the other players are going to be asking questions to try to figure out what that word is. There's a timer. The round goes on for a total maximum 5 minutes. And the point of this is that to get to the second phase, players have to guess the right word. So this is where the role of the insider comes in. Like, the insider knows what the word is, but they're also trying to hide their identity, because the second round is where things get a little spicy in the game. That insider doesn't want to reveal that they know what the question is. But if the group is just going on a wild tangent and they're not even narrowing in, the insider needs to make sure to inject a little bit of information into the game. They want to ask a question that they know is going to get a yes from the master. Maybe they want to confuse things though, and maybe get a no every now and again, just so they aren't just always being the one asking the right questions. So the insider is trying to kind of guide people to get the right answer, because the insider can't win unless you get to that second phase of the round. They have to make sure that actually no one wins if you don't get to the second phase. So you do that 5 minute round of 20 questions, and you're trying to get to that answer to move on to that second phase. Now, the second phase is where the fun part of the game happens. And this is the point where everyone is trying to determine who the insider is. Because essentially, if the insider manages to hide their identity, they win the game. If the insider is found out, everyone else wins the game. So this is you flip the timer over again, you get another up to 5 minutes to discuss. Players start accusing people. They say, oh, he knew, he was asking a crazy question that came out of nowhere. There was no way he should have known that. So I think it's that person over there. And it's oh, no. Like that, it was this person. They asked the question that kind of led me down this route of thinking. So you get some of these accusations flying. And then once the timer's up or the discussion's going nowhere, you just count it. You do 1, 2, 3, and everyone points at who they think the insider is. The person with the most votes reveals their tile. If an insider was found out, everyone else wins, and if not, the insider has just won the game. So really, really good social deduction game. And as you can see, you have a 5 minute starting round, a 5 minute second round, maximum 10 minutes play time for this. So it's really good filler where it has a very determined start and end time to it. Only problem I have with this game is that if you have some shy players, I feel like they might not participate, which is kind of the downside. I find that some of these games that don't have structured turns in them, if players are a little shy about asking those questions, you're going to get, I played this with 7 people, and a lot of the times it's only 3 or 4 that are going to be participating in kind of that 20 question section and finally the accusation section. So it's kind of, you might want to, if you're leading this game, you might want to try to make sure you're involving everybody in the game, because you can just have some people that are just kind of sitting there and hanging out. But I do really like Insider, so if you are looking for a nice light deduction game, and also one that's not words where you need an app, I think Insider is fantastic. All right, on to the next one. This next one is going to be Startups. So Startups is another card game from them, and I believe it's based on an older game called Rights by Oink Games, and this is it's an investment game. So you're trying to invest in a company. Basically, it's another hand management where you have these cards that represent investments in a company. You're playing them down into your tableau, and there's going to be ways to get new cards from the market, but you have to pay the market to take new cards, and then you're going to have also an anti-monopoly chip on the table, which is going to prevent you from taking cards from the market because you don't want to you got some regulations there to prevent you from having a monopoly. And I think at the end of the game, the person with the most cards in a company is going to be the only one scoring for that company. So it's and then there's a cool thing at the end with the scoring where players are going to pay you for their investment shares or something like that. And this is a solid investment game. I thought it had some really cool mechanics and just some super interesting gameplay. But I will say that my play of it fell kind of flat. I feel like players don't have to engage with the systems in the game if they don't want to, and you can kind of just draw through the deck and be like, oh, game's over, who has the most of each one? And it can be a little dry and a little boring. I do feel like this is a game that needs multiple plays, probably needs a group that you play regularly with, and you get into that kind of metagaming situation where you start thinking about how to manipulate others into doing certain things. And I feel like one play of startups is probably not enough to really experience it. But once again, my group is not huge on card games. Like, we don't pull out a lot of just card games for the night. Usually we're starting with a bigger game. If we have time for a card game, we'll try to fit it in. So startups is one that just was never hitting the table, and it was also one, like I said, where I feel like I just needed one group to just sit down and play it like 3 or 4 times in a row to kind of get into the zone of startups, and then maybe some of that enjoyment, some of that deeper level play would come out in startups. We just never reached that point. So I do think startups is a very interesting game, but it is one that is going to require, well, from my point of view, it's going to require some investment in order to, I think, bring out some of that depth in the gameplay. So take that for what it is. I know Shove and Sit Down has reviewed it and has given it they really enjoy it over there. So I do think if you are that group, you are looking for a card game that you can sit down with friends, this would be a good one to try out. Scout is, so I also talked about Scout, and that one is, I think, a little easier to introduce and easier to just have a nice one-off play. I feel like just it has a much more immediate impact, whereas startups did not. Like, it takes a little bit to kind of grasp what's going on in startups. Okay, on to my next one. This is going to be Durian. So Durian is another game that's kind of in that push your luck category. Well, yeah, I should say it is push your luck. So in Durian, you're basically playing as a gorilla working in a convenience store and stocking the shelves or something like that. And essentially, you're all going to be dealt a card that is going to be faced away from you. So you don't know what your card is, but you know what everyone else's card is. And that represents some of the stock on the shelves, I guess. And then on your turn, you have the choice of, well, usually it's going to be drawing a card and then putting it out into the store. And there's a certain, or I think your cards represent demand or something. So essentially, you are going to you can flip the card around. There's going to be 2 sections on the card, and it's going to have 2 different symbols on it. So you can flip it around and put the thing you want on the shelf in the store. Now, and then the next player would do that, and you keep filling up the stock. You end up with this column of cards, and one of the columns indicates what's on the shelves. And now on a player's turn, as that thing builds up, they have the choice of, after that player placed their card, do they ring the bell and call the manager over? Because essentially, when you ring that bell, you're saying that you think the person has overstocked a shelf. Essentially, the cards that are out on the table, or the cards that are in front of the players, is the demand. And you're looking out there and you're saying, oh, there's not enough demand for bananas this round. So I think you put too many bananas on the shelves, and you're going to call over the manager and be like, hey, this person overstocked the shelves with bananas. And then essentially the thing you don't know, though, is what's on your card. So you're not certain of the demand of certain items. You are just trying to take a guess and deal with that probability of, do you think they overstocked the shelves or did they not? So if they did overstock the shelves, they're going to gain a negative scoring token. If they didn't, you're going to get one, but you called the manager over and now he's angry at you. Overall, I do I find this game a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. I love the little bell and calling the manager over. I think it's a nice premise. I like the hidden card with the little hidden information. You have a slight deduction puzzle where you're looking at how other people are putting things out, trying to guess what you have in your card based on their choice of stocking the shelf. So it has this neat deduction puzzle with this little hidden information, and then ringing the bell and calling the manager over. That's a lot of fun. That's my favorite part of the game, is ringing that tiny little bell in the game. I will say that this game, though, it probably suffers from a bit of luck or turn order, because I feel like at a certain point, stocking the shelves, a player has the choice of, okay, do I ring the bell and take the risk of calling the manager over, or do I draw a card knowing that the next player is almost certainly going to ring the bell? Because it's just, once you get a certain number of items on the shelf, it's just like, I should ring the bell. So that's where, at larger player counts, this game might suffer a little bit from that. And if you are someone that really wants that strategy and be like, I want to be able to become good at this game and win this game or whatever, Durian is not that game. Durian is just something you pull out and have a good time with, and just some entertaining with calling over the manager. I thought it had some good decisions, but yeah, I think the luck and the turn order is going to make the game suffer a little bit. So take that for what it is. I would be happy to play it again. Not a game I'm going to be seeking out myself to purchase or like ask to play, I guess. All right, let's move on to the last one on my list, and this is the last one I have in my collection over here. This is going to be DroPolter. DroPolter is my favorite Oink game, just hands down. I absolutely love DroPolter. I think this one's going to be the only Oink game staying in my collection long term. While I enjoy like Scout and Deep Sea Adventure, they don't hit the table very often, and as a filler, I would rather play DroPolter. So DroPolter is a dexterity game where essentially you are going to have a certain number of objects, I think 6 or something objects in your hand, and then everyone's going to shake them up in their hand, put their hand in the center of the table, you flip over a card, and then everyone flips their hands over and tries to drop the objects that are shown on that card. The first person to do that is going to reach out, try to grab the ghost token, and if you get the ghost token, you gain a victory point. So that victory point is a bell. You add that bell to your hand, and if you drop that bell for any reason, you lose that victory point. So essentially I think you're going for 5 victory points, so for 5 bells. So as you gain more and more bells, it gets harder and harder to hold on to those bells, so it becomes more and more common for people to drop those victory points, and it's hilarious when people do. So this is a super easy game, really easy to teach, really easy to just pull out as a filler, and it's just super entertaining to play. Now, there's just one problem with the game, and that is the fact that I think hand size is kind of important. Like if you're playing with people with a variety of hand sizes, then the people with the bigger hands might have an easier time with this, whereas someone with really small hands is probably going to struggle, and it might feel a little unfair due to that, let's say, physical differences in your players. And some people aren't going to care. Some people are going to care. It really depends, but I just wanted to call that out as something that has come up before in a play session. But other than that, I think DroPolter is it's a lot of fun in a tiny box, and I can get it to the table in like less than a minute with teaching and everything. So yep, it's one that I plan on keeping around, and I just take it with me. And if we're like in between games, we're like, let's do a filler. DroPolter it is. Okay, so that is going to do it for my Oink Games Roundup here. And just as always, a quick wrap up for these kind of hot takes here. Deep Sea Adventure, I really like it. I showed the pictures of Deep Sea Adventure Boost, which is the newer version. I would love to try that one. I like this push your luck mechanic, but I would say after a dozen plays or so, I've kind of it's lost its luster for me. So it's not one that I would actually recommend playing it. Seeking it out, I don't know, that's up to you. I think if you have kids or something, like this one would be one that you could play all the time. But as far as with gamers as a filler, it's kind of left my collection as a filler at this point. Scout, fantastic card game. I mean, got an award, Spilled Jars. It's great. I love playing it. It just doesn't. I don't have a group that plays card games very often, so it doesn't hit the table very often. But I'm going to keep it a little bit longer. Hopefully, get in a few more games. Insider, that one I think is a lot of fun. If you like those word games, if you like a little bit of social deduction, I think that this is better than Werewords because you don't need the app. You can do it all from that box, and it has a kind of fixed 10-minute playing time. So I think Insider is a great one to seek out if you do have a larger group or party game that you're searching for that kind of larger player count group. Startups, this is a really neat card game that I just feel like needs a group that can play it a few times and kind of start getting into that metagaming for this game. I think there is some depth to Startups that I didn't get to experience. And I don't have it anymore because I don't think I was going to experience it because I don't have a group that just plays those games like back to back like that. We're very, very bad about playing a game once and then it doesn't hit the table again for 6 to 12 months. Next up, Durian. Durian I have a really good time with. I think this is a super entertaining game. I just don't think there's I think there's some inflexibility in your ability to control the victory condition. So it's probably turn order based. That's going to kind of determine who gets to call the manager over or not. So it's a fun time, but lack of player agency might be a problem for some people. Then DroPolter, this is my favorite one. Real-time dexterity game. You flip over a card, drop some objects, try to grab the ghost, try to keep these bells in your hands. It's fantastic. I would highly recommend DroPolter. So that's going to do it for this Friday. I got to get to editing. Hopefully I'll get this done in time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I will talk to you next time.